Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talk Soccer to Me, a show from the US of A telling you everything that's going on in the world of European soccer. Spoiler, we're going to hit the Premier League pretty hard. It was match week 8, as well as there are big games out of Germany, Spain, Italy, and France. We're going to talk about them in that order. Just to give you a heads up, this is a rage bait free show. This is a nostalgia free show. I think those are the two things plaguing most soccer media platforms. Who was the best 11 from the Premier League in the 2000s? Like, who cares? I just want to know what's going on in the field. I want to recap what's going on the field, and I want an opinion based off the most recent games of what happened on the field. So that's what we're here. That's what we're here to do. That's what we're trying to do this week. If you like what you hear, we're at Talk Soccer to Me on all social media platforms. Make sure to like, subscribe, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, as well as we are platformed on all major streaming services. That's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio Podcasts, whatever you want to listen to. Today is Thursday, October 23rd. So let's get started. We're going to start in Premier League, where it was match week 8, and there were some really exciting games. First up was Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest. Chelsea headed up north as both teams are looking to change their Premier League fortunes. Chelsea coming into this game with a bit of Premier League inconsistency, losing 2 in a row, and then defeating reigning champions Liverpool. Forest have been on a free fall in the last few weeks, having not won a Premier League game since their opener against Brentford, picking up 2 draws and 5 losses since then. Getting this game started, Chelsea would be without their head coach Enzo Maresca, as he would be watching the game from up top due to a suspension. Forest nearly had the opening chance of the game as a poor Chelsea back pass opened up a run for them, but they couldn't finish it. Poor Chelsea passing then nearly cost them again 8 minutes later into the fair as Trevor Chalobah passed it to Morgan Gibbs-White. Like they were on the same team. It set up Elliot Anderson for a decent opportunity, but instead of taking it first time, he tried to cut back, which ultimately ended up being a poor decision. Romeo Lavia then, a few minutes, also gave it away. That set up Gibbs-White again. I wouldn't say Chelsea were playing awfully early in the game at this point, but at the same time, if they kept up those mistakes, it was going to cost them. And frankly, it was shocking that Forest hadn't scored in the first 20 minutes. I mean, the City ground was rocking. Their stadium was really into it. Chelsea finally did stabilize, though, and they had a few chances to wrap up the first half. Most serious was a little chip over the top to Andre Santos, but ultimately it didn't result in anything serious. Moving on to the second half, Chelsea got it started early. The 49th minute, Pedro Neto with a strong run down the left wing sent it across to the young center back, Josh Achampong. First career goal in the professional leagues for the youngster. It was poor defending from Forest as he was standing unmarked at the top of the 6-yard box. Pedro Neto finally getting one of his deliveries correct. Neto kept it going as then he scored from a free kick 3 minutes later. It was a low indirect kick that made its way through the Forest wall, and all credit to Neto. It had pace, but the central location of the shot made you wonder, should the Forest keeper Matt Sells have done better? He's usually pretty solid. I mean, he was named the Premier League Best 11 last year, so this was a surprising mistake. Joao Pedro nearly made it 3 in the 57th minute. Forest squandering more chances in the 62nd minute. They had a decent chance from a corner in the 65th minute, but it was a fantastic save from the Chelsea keeper Robert Sanchez. Igor Jesus hit 2 posts on a shot from a Callum Hudson-Odoi cross that somehow didn't score for Forest. Reece James, the captain, then wrapped up the game in the 85th minute. Wonderfully finished a cross that landed right in front of him from around the penalty spot, as that makes it 3-0 Chelsea, and that was the game. The biggest piece of news that came from this game was the sacking of Ange Postecoglou after only 8 matches leading the club. And may I remind you that Nuno Espirito Santo was fired less than 2 months ago. Sean Dyche was brought in to lead the club, but I just feel bad for Big Ange. The man won Tottenham their first trophy in years, only to be sacked after the fact in the summer. Now he's brought into Forest, a team that really did perform well last season and isn't even given 9 games to show what he can do. Maybe if they finished one of their several chances today, they would still have him coaching the team. Chelsea did well to fight back from what was a poor and sloppy start to the game. I don't know if what was said at halftime worked, but they really did turn it around in the second half. Pedro Neto really had himself a strong second half himself. Good win overall. They were able to keep their best player, Caicedo, on the bench. My only concern is that was another red card for Chelsea. That's 5 in their last 6 matches. Maresca had defended his players in a press conference after, but that is of serious concern. I mean, there's some serious discipline problems going on in the club. And, you never want your big players missing games due to suspension. But with this win, Chelsea are currently sitting 5th in the Premier League, while Forest are dangerously sitting in the relegation spots all the way down in 18th. Next up was Newcastle versus Brighton. The north of England traveling to the south of England. Strong lineups for both sides this weekend, even for Newcastle, as they have a Champions League fixture in the middle of the week. Both teams have serious European aspirations this season and are looking to continue decent, solid, but not amazing starts to the season. International breaks can always be a good reset, so here we go. First decent chance went to Newcastle as their ever reliable right back, Kieran Trippier, sent the cross into the box. Second chance was immediate as the ball from the cross fell to Bruno Guimaraes. His shot from the penalty area was wide of the goal, as that was a serious scoring opportunity. Joel Linton then poorly gave the ball away in the 20th minute, leading to a decent Brighton chance. Jorginho Rudder's shot came off his foot better than I was expecting based off the movement of his body, and it actually required a save from Nick Pope to keep it out. Brighton then scored a simple yet wonderful goal. A pass from Jan-Paul van Hecke to Ruta in the middle of the pitch. He did well to carry it with speed to maybe 30 yards out, where he placed a wonderful pass to the experienced Danny Welbeck, who was nicely placed between two center backs. A light chip, as cool as you like, past the goalkeeper, and Brighton were heading into halftime with a 1-0 lead. Coming back from the break, Newcastle nearly tied it up. They had several players in the box for a long throw. It was cleared, but then big old Dan Burn sent the ball on the ground across the face of goal, and somehow no Newcastle player was there to get a foot on it, when most likely it would have resulted in an easy goal had someone been there. I mean, it was a great pass from a center back. The start of the second half was lively, though. It was more entertainment in the first 10 minutes of that second half than the entirety of the first half. Halftime sub for Brighton, Maxim de Kuiper, had a shot that was nicely saved by Pope in the 50th minute, as these teams were just exchanging blows left and right. It wasn't just one team, though. I mean, they both really were progressing the ball well. Newcastle finally got their equalizer through a beauty, as lovely as you like. Wonderful pass from Guimaraes up top to Lewis Miley, who then, across the goal, found Nick Voltamata, who had a wonderful back heel to the bottom corner. I mean, it was just really, really nice. A true treat on the eyes. Seriously, I mean, this is one of the ones, go look it up. They nearly scored right after, but it was Brighton who would get the last laugh. A Danny Welbeck double won the game. A wonderful line breaking pass was dealt with by Newcastle defenders, but the ball fell to the feet of Danny Welbeck at the top of the box. He got it past the goalkeeper. Newcastle pushed for an equalizer after this, but it did not happen. Brighton won the game 2-1. Brighton versus Newcastle was a proper match. The first half was slow with only one goal. The second half was class. These teams let it loose. There were chances galore. Two very good goals. Positive soccer. I mean, what else could you want? Danny Welbeck, 34 years of age. Who can tell? Proper strikers finish on both of the goals. Broke a home scoring drought that had been going on since February, and now has 4 in 8 games so far in this Premier League season. You also have to give the flowers to Newcastle striker as well. Nick Voltamata, 23 years of age, brought in to do a difficult task replacing Alexander Isak for the cheap sum of £70 million. His goal today was spectacular. He missed some chances, yes, but he scored, and that's a striker's job. The kid has 4 goals in 5 Premier League games. He scored in the Champions League. It's going to be exciting to watch this kid going forward. Keeps it up, he could be leading the line for Germany in the World Cup this summer if they qualify. Brighton's win has them sitting 10th to start the season, while this loss sees Newcastle fall to 14th. I'm not panicking over Newcastle's start. There's plenty of talent on this team, and compounding with 8 guaranteed Champions League phase games, it's going to be a busy fall. Their new signing should be back, which is a positive, and if it's Boxing Day and Newcastle are still 14th, well, then I'll be worried. But right now, I'm not. Next up, it was a battle between two recently promoted teams. Leeds took a quick trip to Turf Moor to face Burnley, both teams hoping they spent their international breaks properly, as they both are looking to come back from losses prior to the break. Starting lineups, I want to give a shout out to the solo American starting in the game, the man from New Jersey, Brendan Aronson. And as you get the game started, Leeds were the better team at first through maybe the first quarter of the game. Their chances in possession, though, really lacked any serious threat, and then that cost them, because in the 18th minute, Kyle Walker sends in a lovely cross, as good as you see. Leslie Ugachukwu was dead center in front of the goal, put his header perfectly in the right corner. Leeds keeper Carl Darlow had no chance. A few minutes later in the 31st minute, Leeds had a really good opportunity to tie the game up. Aronson had a one-on-one with the keeper on a counter, and the slightest of touches, the keeper Duvraka got on the ball, kept it out of the net as it hit the post. Aronson, our boy, should have put it away. There were a few tiny Leeds chances as the game went into halftime. It was still 1-0 to Burnley, though. Leeds started the second half better as Aronson sent in a decent cross. Matty Longstaff sent in a nice cross, but these chances just weren't falling for Leeds. And Burnley again made them pay as Kyle Walker took the ball up with some serious speed on the right side. He's always been known for his quickness. And after some extended Burnley possession, Shalna, who had just come on, hit a serious banger from 25 yards out or so. Leeds keeper had no chance, as you will not see many goals better than that one. A blast and the decisive blow finished the game 2-0 to Burnley. Last season, Burnley and Leeds fought for the championship title. This year, they're fighting for something else, and that's to stay up in the Premier League. Staying up has been something that every recently promoted team in the last 3 years has seriously struggled with I believe none of them actually successfully doing it. Leeds will struggle this season if their finishing is anything like it was today. The chances were there. Maybe it was a wonderful performance from Dubravka, but several times Leeds had me scratching my head wondering how they had not scored. Dominic Calvert-Lewin up top was poor. Our American boy, Brendan Aronson, was solid in creating chances, but he also struggled to put him in the back of the net when it was his opportunity. And Leeds are averaging less than a goal a game. They have 7 through their first 8. That's not good enough. You flip it for Burnley, though. Kyle Walker on the right side was fantastic and an amazing signing this summer. He's an ageless wonder, if you will. He either had a direct or indirect result in both of Burnley's goals. And with this result, Leeds are still 1 point above Burnley. They're in 16th place. Burnley sit in 17th place, which is the last surviving spot above the relegation zone. Bournemouth traveled into the great city of London to take on Crystal Palace. That was our next game. Good news, there were 2 Americans featuring in this matchup. Chris Richards in the defense for Crystal Palace and Tyler Adams in the midfield for Bournemouth. Bournemouth won before the break. Crystal Palace lost. Though both teams relatively are on good form, there's only been 1 loss in the last 10 games between them in all competitions. Crystal Palace are in Europe, and they actually won their first Conference League matchup versus Dynamo Kiev before the international break. And I hope you like goals, because that's most of what's going to be talked about today. 7 minutes in, on their second corner of the day, Bournemouth opened up the scoring. The well-placed corner is flicked on by Antoine Semenyo, or at least it was one of the defenders near Semenyo, but if he hadn't been there, it wouldn't have happened. And standing at the back post was Eli Krupi, who will not score an easier goal in his life. And it was an exciting moment. The 19-year-old from France, this was his first Premier League start, and he got a goal. He recently came over this summer from Lorient for 13 million euros, at least according to Transfermarkt. And Bournemouth were dominating early. Maybe there was a penalty shout in the 16th minute, but it was nothing serious. And then the game, fell into more of a back-and-forth affair. Bournemouth, though, made it 2-0 in the 38th minute. A run down the left side from Semenyo saw his cross kind of half-cleared by Marquet. And unfortunately for Palace, it fell to Krupi as the 19-year-old got his double. A first-time finish volley out of the air. It was really great. This weekend was full of nice goals. I'm going to go on and on about it. You should watch them or you'll never see one better. But it just really felt like there were great goals everywhere. Jean-Philippe Mateta, the Crystal Palace striker, had his chances before halftime, but it went in 2-0 to Bournemouth. There were so many chances in this game, I don't have time to talk about it all. I'm going to have to just stick to the goals. And Palace finally got theirs. Mateta held the ball up as a good striker does. It ends up with Munoz on the side, and Mateta is there in front of goal to put it away. It was originally ruled offsides, but correctly switched to a good goal. 5 minutes later, it went from Munoz to Mateta again for Crystal Palace. It was slightly different this time. Munoz tried to score from across. It was saved, but who was there at the back post? Mateta, a striker standing where he's supposed to be. The game was tied 2-2. Eddie Nketiah thought he completed the comeback for Crystal Palace, but his goal was offsides in the 78th minute, and it was all Crystal Palace in the second half, so then you'd be surprised to hear that the next goal actually went to Bournemouth. They took their lead back on the left side, a nice pass to Ben Doak, who then kind of hit one of those low on-the-ground crosses in front of goal, where it was met by the foot of Ryan Christie against the run of play, and did this turn out to be the winner? No, we're not done with this game. In the dying moments, Mark Gay was tackled by the Bournemouth player on a corner. A penalty was called, and who was there to secure it, score it, and put it away for the hat-trick? Jean-Philippe Mateta. He tied the game up in the 97th minute, and it finished 3-3. When all the summer striker signings were happening, many big names were moved around. Gyökeres, Isak, Sesko, Voltemata, but very rarely did Jean-Philippe Mateta get brought up. And I'm not advocating that he should have left Crystal Palace. I'm kind of glad he stayed. I just do not understand why none of these big Premier League teams favored Mateta. He's 30 Premier League goals in the last 2 seasons at Crystal Palace. Imagine what those numbers could have been on Arsenal or Liverpool. Anyway, he got a hat-trick today, and it was a proper striker's hat-trick. The right location on a cross, he was at the back post, and it was a penalty. And Mateta can't be the only player I give praise to. The Bournemouth youngster Eli Krupi bagged a double on his Premier League debut, and it was especially fine finish on the second goal. And these teams treated us to a show this weekend. He had 6 goals in one game, 2 in the last 10 minutes. Bournemouth, though, have to be especially frustrated as they had a 2-goal lead and then a 1-goal lead, and they blew both of them away from home. They allowed Crystal Palace to absolutely dominate in the second half, and frankly, they're kind of lucky just to be walking away with a draw. And with the draw, Bournemouth managed to stay in the Champions League spots. They're holding down 3rd place, while Crystal Palace is not too far away. 2 points and 5 spots down in 8th place. Palace does have a Europa League game in the midweek fixtures. They should keep their goal-scoring form going. Manchester City then hosted Everton as we keep the Saturday games going. The big storyline here was the lack of Jack Grealish in the game. This wasn't due to suspension or injury. Jack Grealish is on loan at Everton. His parent club is Manchester City. So the player who's been fantastic to start the season cannot play, as players on loan cannot face their parent club. That's just English league rules. So there's not a world where Grealish plays today. But getting the game started, Manchester City produced the game's first chance of any kind. A lovely chip over the line to Savinho ultimately did not result in anything. A decent shot from Man City. Left back Nico O'Reilly had a few seconds later. In the 14th minute, Njai rolled a ball across the box to Beto for Everton's best chance, but it was just a few inches too far. The game picked up with several City chances. Erling Haaland hit the post on a header in the 24th minute. The better chances closer to halftime actually fell to Everton, requiring some effort from new Manchester City keeper Gianluigi Donnarumma to make a few decent saves. All this back and forth, you really expected one of the teams to have scored by halftime, but that was not the case. Actually, in dying breath before halftime, Savinho danced well in the wing, beating Mikolenko and requiring a save from Pickford. I wrote in my notes that the first half was over, and then that happened. Moving on to the second half, though, we got a goal. The red hot goal scorer, the man from Norway, the ever fantastic Erling Haaland. In the build-up, Phil Foden delivered an excellent pass to Nico O'Reilly, whose cross had some height. Erling Haaland jumped incredibly high in front of the 6-yard box. There was no one immediately around him, no one to maybe throw him off his header, and that header left Jordan Pickford with no chance of a save, went right in the goal. Manchester City took a 1-0 lead, and not even as much as 6 minutes later, City were back on the attack. Foden he crossed the field with a nice pass to Savinho, who was opening the box to hit a left-footed shot. Didn't result in anything, but the second goal did come. Erling Haaland, of course, got his second of the game. And I'm not going to put Haaland down in any which way. He's an absolutely fantastic. But Lady Luck was kind of on his side for this goal. It wasn't hit with amazing power or accuracy, and it got the slightest of touches from Everton defender James Tarkowski, and that kind of blinded Jordan Pickford. And for a shot, you kind of would have expected the goalie to save. He was late on the ball, and it got past him, and it got in the back of the net. City then had a 2-goal lead. Foden had a decent take to make it 3-0, but he got a little too under the ball, sent it sky high into the stands, and at the end of the game, in the 92nd minute, Haaland had his chance to make it a hat trick. He did well to use his speed to get past defenders on a through ball, but a poor touch and actually pretty good positioning from Pickford prevented the striker from getting that hat trick. It was all Man City as the game finished 2-0. I originally had it wrote down 3-0. I was like, wait, that doesn't add up to none of the other goals scored. City versus Everton was a pretty one-sided affair. It's been the Erling Haaland show so far this season for Manchester City. This guy is just incredible, and that's not a hot take. It's pretty much something everyone would agree with. And the double he scored today takes his total in the Premier League to 11 goals in 8 games so far, which, if you do the math, is technically on pace for 52 goals. But hey, who's counting? And both goals really showed the strength of a striker. You know, you just want your striker to be in the right place at the right time, and he was there. He finished them well. The athleticism he showed on the jumping header was just phenomenal. The goalkeeper, Gianluigi Donnarumma, was not called much, but he was strong when he needed to be. And yeah, there's some strong play from the City wingers, Jeremy Doku and Savinho, specifically Savinho. And if they can improve their finishing with the chances that they have been creating this season, the sky is the limit for Manchester City. I mean, they really do have all the potential in the world to make a deep run in every competition this year. I feel like they're kind of being ruled out because of the down season they had last year, but I like their summer signings, and if they can get a clean bill of health, this is going to be a dangerous team. As for Everton, I do think this game highlights the importance of Jack Grealish. While the team capitulated in the second half, if you put Jack Grealish on the field for some of those early chances in the first half, there's a really good chance Everton would have scored one. I know that's if, ands, or buts, but so far what I've seen this season is Grealish has kind of been the difference maker on a lot of these Everton goals. But finishing's still been a problem for Everton this season. They really need to work on that. But with this result, Manchester City are currently sitting second in the Premier League. Everton fall to 12th, and it's been a decent start for both teams this season. Next up on the Saturday slate of Premier League games, the team that has impressed me most so far this Premier League season was hosting the team that's been the most disappointing, Sunderland versus Wolves. A 9-point spread separates these two teams, and a lot of people watching, including myself, are wondering if Sunderland can keep up on their good form and if it will last. And in this battle of two fortunes, Wolves actually had the first chance, which was followed up by some strong possession by Sunderland. They broke the Wolves' press nicely multiple times. Sunderland's organization definitely looks to be one of their strengths. The way they were progressing the ball early, Sunderland striker Wilson Isidore, he thought he'd open it up in the ninth minute as Sunderland carved through Wolves like it was nothing, but he was pretty offsides. Sunderland did get their well-deserved breakthrough, though, in the 16th minute. Former Arsenal captain Granit Xhaka set up winger Enzo Lefebvre. He passed it to the right back Nordi Mukaeli, who played a wonderful 1-2 with left back Trey Hume in a crowded box, and Mukaeli finishes it under the keeper. Some wonderful passing from Sunderland to open the scoring and take a 1-0 lead. A long throw-in a few minutes later almost doubled their lead, but Trey Hume hit the post with his header. And Sunderland pressed the Wolves goal one last time before halftime as their long-range shots were blocked. And outside of 3 or 4 chances for Sunderland and the one goal, it wasn't the most exciting first half, but it was pretty dominant by Sunderland. Wolves actually finally got themselves involved in the game to start the second half, but Joao Gomez squandered a shot that was delivered to him on a silver platter. Wolves kept pushing on for the next few minutes. Wilson Isidore then had a decent chance for Sunderland in the 63rd minute, but most of this early second half was all Wolves. Their shooting was just poor. They had bodies up top, and they were moving the ball to the box often, but again, poor shooting. In the both 78th minute and the 85th minute, Wolves put the ball in dangerous positions, but actually it was well defended. It really wasn't a reflection of their shooting this time. And the 86th minute right after probably saw Wolves' best chance to find an equalizer. Strand Larson found Jackson Chachua on a through ball in the middle of the field, but his finish was frankly atrocious, and it completely missed the goal. Wolves were pushing, they're trying to find the equalizer, but Sunderland hit them on a counter. Substitute Chemsdine Talby carried the ball far, looked across it past the face of goal, but it hit the unlucky foot of Wolves defender Ladislav Krejci, who put it past his goalkeeper Sam Johnstone, who was positioning himself to deal with the cross, so he had no chance in the world to save it. That goal made it 2-0 and wrapped up another win for Sunderland so far this season at home. Sunderland keep rolling. That's another 4th win so far this season, and combine it with the 2 draws, they're up to 14 points. And that's 2 more than the Southampton team who was relegated last season in their atrocious 2024-2025 season. The old saying in English football has always been you need 40 points to stay up. And that's only 26 points away for Sunderland. There's 30 games left, so that's averaging less than a draw a game to stay up. Again, it's commonly known how hard it has been for recently promoted teams to stay. And everything I've seen from Sunderland so far tells me they're capable of doing it. The £182 million they spent this season was on display well today, with players like Granit Xhaka, Enzo Lefebvre, and Nordi Mukaele really putting in key performances. Manager Reggie Labrie has them well organized. They were strong in defense in this game. They didn't really allow Wolves to get a sniff on goal. They advanced possession incredibly well at times. They countered effectively towards the end of the game. And Sunderland actually faced 2 other recently promoted teams, Burnley and Leeds, in their next 2 matches. So that could be crucial points for them. Wolves are in shambles, though. But they were at the beginning of last season. So it's a matter of can they do what they did last season and save their asses. They were actually worse off at this point 8 games in the season. But with this win, Sunderland are sitting 7th in the Premier League, while Wolves are sitting at the bottom by themselves with the worst record so far. If you were watching this game in the United States on NBC or Peacock, you would know how awful the audio was at different points of this game. Good Lord. That was the biggest thing written in my notes. I had to turn this game on my phone because the TV, it was just atrocious. And then I had to mute it on my phone. It was that bad. But the game did happen, so we do need to talk about it. The first decent chance was Victor Gyökeres for Arsenal receiving a ball from Declan Rice that he tried to play as a cross when it would have been much better off shooting it with his left foot. Fulham then did have some slight chances against what's usually a quite stubborn Arsenal defense. Banger was then, unfortunately, correctly taken off the board. You hate to see bangers go by. Trossard off a long ball from Urian Timber set up Ricardo Calafiori, the Arsenal left back. Calafiori struck it perfectly, but he was about half a yard offside, so ultimately it would not count. What a goal it would have been, though. Fulham were pushing in the first half, though. It was dangerous, but not too threatening. Saka was fantastic throughout the game. He set up 2 decent Arsenal chances back-to-back in the first half. The first one ended up with a good shot from Gyökeres, and then the other one was across to Calafiori. Declan Rice probably had the last decent chance before halftime, but the game was sitting 0-0 to wrap up 45 minutes. Arsenal really knew they needed to pick it up in the second half. Trossard had a good shot early. Saka progressed the ball well, but none of those resulted in anything. Fulham then had their best chance of the game in the 54th minute as Harry Wilson received an Alex Iwobi cross near the penalty marker, and while the power was there, it sailed over the Arsenal bar off target. In the 58th minute, Arsenal secured a corner, and you know what that means. Set piece FC struck again. Tale as old as time. Saka cross in. Gabriel who's got to be the best in the world at heading corners, and an unmarked Leandro Trossard was sitting all alone at the back of the net to put it in after it deflected off Gabriel's head. Slightest of touches. Saka nearly scored a worldie, actually, right after, with some nice link-up play with Trossard. Arsenal thought they won a penalty in the 65th minute, but VAR ruled it to not be a foul at all. Fulham at this point had no more strength going forward, and they just did their best from letting Arsenal double their lead. Final score in this one ended up being Arsenal 1, Fulham 0. Set Piece FC strikes again. One of Arsenal's strongest assets and their rival's biggest frustration wins them another game. Listen, if it works, it works. Set pieces have been a part of this game since the start. They just seem to be great at it. Gabriel Magalhaes specifically, it feels like he's involved in every single one of these set piece goals. And this isn't being said with any negativity, because Arsenal were also incredibly strong in open field play. Their defense, who you could seriously argue is the best in the world, did not allow a single shot on target today. That's an impressive feat. This team's given up 3 goals in 8 games so far. That's insane. And it's technically on pace to be better than that Chelsea team from 2004 that only gave up 15 goals in the season. It takes a lot to score against them. Liverpool, it took one of the best free kicks I've ever seen. And for Manchester City, well, it's Erling Haaland. He's going to score against everyone. And going forward, both the wingers had strong performances. Leandro Trossard and Bukayo Saka, they linked up together well. Saka in particular deserves his praise. His play on the right was sharp. And Fulham didn't play poorly. They didn't play bad. And the game was much closer in the first half. Their worst aspect was how when Arsenal scored with over 30 minutes left to go in the game, plus stoppage time, it just seemed like Fulham crumbled. They gave up. They were not able to attack after that with any effort. They just seemed to regress and shrivel up as it went on. With this win, Arsenal stay top of the league, while Fulham are sitting 15th, only 3 points above the relegation spots. Sunday in the Premier League was shaken up to be an exciting one, with 2 potentially exciting games on the schedule. First of the 2 was Aston Villa heading down to London to face last year's Europa League winners Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham under new manager Thomas Frank have enjoyed a nice start to the season, but Aston Villa has plenty of talent, and they displayed it in their Champions League quarterfinal appearance last season, and they can always be a difficult one to face. This matchup started off interestingly early, less than 5 minutes into the game. The first real piece of action, Tottenham were pressing high up on the pitch. Aston Villa defender Ezri Konsa, he lost the ball. The result is a corner kick for Spurs. The first kick is cleared, but Jed Spence retains possession for Tottenham, sends it out to Mohamed Kudus. He crossed the ball in incredibly well, and then Joao Paulina, his header, sent it across goal. Rodrigo Bentancur finished it with power, and early in this matchup, Tottenham were up 1-0. Just strong pass, strong cross, strong header, strong finish. And they almost doubled their lead a few minutes later, but Kudus strayed into an offsides position and would have been an all-time assist for center back Mickey van de Ven. Just, it's always a shame when a good pass like that gets lost to history because it was offsides. Aston Villa then got their first taste of anything in the 27th minute as a through ball to Daniel Malen was actually dealt with nicely by the Spurs center back Kevin Danso. I thought Malen was in on goal. Thought he was going to have a one-on-one, but the defender did well to catch up. Villa were finding themselves really in this game. They were definitely in it in the 37th minute. Morgan Rogers, who just found a little space to himself outside of the box, scored a shot. I'm going to say it again, you won't see many goals better than this one. Just the perfect amount of arc and dip to where the Tottenham keeper Vicario really couldn't do anything about it whatsoever. And then after not being in this game at all, Villa had tied it up before halftime. Spurs had 2 more chances from free kicks and 1 from open play before halftime, and they couldn't do much from it. Tottenham then called for a handball in the 53rd minute, which it wasn't. The defender had his hands in front of his chest, and frankly, the Spurs player, I think it was Bentancur, should have done better on the shot. Spurs were piling it on after the break, but they just couldn't get the ball in the back of the net. A decent take from Paulina required a save from Emi Martinez. Bentancur had a ball from a corner that also required a decent Martinez save. And then the second half actually kind of quieted down for a little bit. We get into the 77th minute. Villa were on the attack. Matty Cash sent the lovely ball forward. Emiliano Buendias sees the ball in his feet. He finds himself with some open space again. And just like that, another well-placed shot from outside the box got past the Tottenham keeper. And yeah, against the flow of the game for the second time, Villa extended their lead 2-1. Spurs never really had a good chance after that. And the final result was Aston Villa 2, Tottenham 1. This was a bit of a strange one. For extended periods of both the first and second half, I thought Tottenham were the better team in the game. There were several dangerous and well-placed crosses that were sent in, but they didn't score from any of them. They didn't score again after the 5th minute. And when you play a team like Villa, that can bite you. Especially, it doesn't matter how well they're playing. They have individuals. Good individuals can change the flow of a game instantly. Emi Martinez can save what would be goal after goal after goal after goal. He's a World Cup winner, for God's sakes. And he did produce strong saves during long spells of Tottenham attacks. Morgan Rogers, he, on Villa's only second serious attack, hit a wonderful goal that negated all the good work Tottenham had done so far in the game. And it was really a shame for their home team. I thought Tottenham's season has gone good so far, and I was expecting them to put this away. I did believe them to be favorites. And Villa's going to savor this. I mean, it was a gritty win away from home. It was a comeback at that. And it's definitely a team trying to get back into the Champions League with the talent that they have. That should be their aspiration. With this result, Tottenham find themselves out of the top four currently, sitting in 6th, right behind Chelsea and Liverpool. Villa jump up into the middle of the pack, into 11th, with this being their 3rd Premier League win of the season. The final game on Sunday is one of the most famous rivalries in all of soccer. The two most decorated teams in English history, Liverpool, were hosting Manchester United. Recent history couldn't be any different for these two historic sides, as Liverpool won it all last season, while United finished a record low 16th. Liverpool this year are currently in a bit of a slide, though, right now, trying to fix things, while United are just kind of trying to get any sort of identity. But if we get this Northwestern derby started, Liverpool were kind of surprising me in the lineup. They started Alexander Isak over Ekitike, who I was expecting him to start. He's been in really good form. They're also dealing with an injury to Alisson Becker, though they do have a competent Georgian national team goalie backup. United started in their usual 3-4-3 under Ruben Amorim, Cunha up top over Šeško. But besides that, it was probably one of their stronger lineups. And as this game got started, it started hot. 61 seconds into the game, there was a ball in the back of the net. Manchester United won it in the middle of the field. Amad Diallo found Brian Mbeumo with a well-placed pass on the run. He hits a wonderful first time. It was poor tracking from Van Dijk, and just like that, Manchester United were leading at Anfield. A good goal. And I thought we were going to get a Liverpool equalizer in the 20th minute. Mo Salah found himself with some serious space in the middle attacking third of the field. It's about the last guy you want to find there. He finds Cody Gakpo, whose curling finish hits the post. It really looked like a modern day Liverpool goal. We saw that a lot last year. But United had chances of their own as well. This goal was not a fluke. Diallo found the captain, Bruno Fernandes, who shot himself, should have been better, and hit the outside of the post. More and more chances for United as they looked the better team. Liverpool, though, are always dangerous on the counter. It really was an entertaining first half. To start the second half, Cody Gakpo hit the post for the 3rd time in the game. And it just really shows it's a game of inches. He could be on a hat trick, but instead he had 0. Liverpool were picking it up, though. Salah had a chance in the 64th minute that he should have put away, and their fortune in front of goal finally turned around as Cody Gakpo finally got his goal. It was kind of a mess in the middle. The ball stayed with Liverpool, and Federico Chiesa hit a powerful pass. They hit Gakpo, who was wide open in front of the goal. He wouldn't hit the post this time. He would tie this game up 1-1. And then, as you'd expect, in the 84th minute, there was a hero by the name of Harry frickin' Maguire. The second cross from a corner from Bruno Fernandes finds the head of the great Harry Maguire, and 5 minutes after giving one up, Manchester United retook the lead. Liverpool tried to produce some Anfield magic. Gakpo had a header that missed the goal completely. That would have been the one, but it wasn't. Final score, Manchester United 2, Liverpool 1. Glory, glory, Man United. Boys from Manchester came to play this weekend, and play they did. For the first time in like 10 years, Man United has gone to Anfield and won, and they fully deserved this win. This wasn't like they sat back all game and got 2 fluky goals. They were the far better team in the first half. And in the second half, when Liverpool were piloting on, many other teams we have seen against Liverpool would have capitulated. But United didn't. This United didn't. And yeah, they benefited from the goalposts being rattled a few times, and Cody Gakpo should have had more than one goal. But United had several chances that you could have argued should have been a goal. And freaking Harry Maguire. What else can you say? He's a polarizing figure, no doubt, but put him in the box towards the end of the game, and he has one of the most dangerous heads in the world. As for Liverpool, I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to panic regarding Liverpool. Yeah, this is a really poor run of form they're on, especially when it felt like they could not lose last year. But there's talent in this team. They will get through this stretch and will continue to be one of the better sides in Europe. They're going to make several deep runs in multiple competition. But this win shoots United back into the top half of the table, where their fans have been longing for them to get back in. So they're sitting 9th. Liverpool, with back-to-back losses, have now fallen to 4th place in the Premier League. The Premier League wrapped up on Monday as a struggling West Ham team was hosting Brentford in the London Olympic Stadium. Brentford was coming off a win, but West Ham have not won in the league since the end of August, so they're really looking to turn their fortunes around. It's always a reminder to me when I see these lineups that Jordan Henderson is back in the Premier League, starting in the midfield with Brentford. Also worth noting, West Ham have a newish manager in Nuno Espirito Santo. And there were small chances for both teams early in the game. Nothing ever felt too dangerous. Brentford had the first chance that I thought should have been a goal when Igor Thiago hit the crossbar in the 30th minute. Yeah, that one definitely should have been a goal. But most of these challenges and corners were for Brentford. And Brentford finally did get their goal that they had been pushing for so hard in the first half. It was a ball over the top to left winger Kevin Shada. He managed to corral it, passed it to Thiago, and it was saved from there was a save by the West Ham goalkeeper, but there was no one around, and the ball just kind of spun and trickled into the net. And there was a decent shout for Bowen in halftime, but it went into halftime 1-0. That was probably West Ham's best chance of the game. The second half was average, I guess. Teams exchanged chances, but West Ham did not get into it the way you would like a home team to. Brentford finished off the game in the 94th minute with a goal and they on a counter, and they won 2-0 away from home. The boos and the whistles were raining in at the London Stadium after the final whistle between West Ham and Brentford. If you were a West Ham fan or a neutral fan that was looking to be entertained, that felt fair. Brentford fans are the only ones who are going to be walking away from this with any sort of joy or entertainment. And West Ham, they've had a season from hell so far. They've got a win and a draw in their first 8 games, and that's just not the way to be. Shocking take from me there. With recently promoted teams looking the strongest they have in years, Nuno Santo really needs to turn this ship around. Their home record has been abysmal, and they've never really felt place in the London Stadium. It just seems like in the atmosphere for West Ham fans at their old ground used to be solid, and at the London Stadium it's just not the same. And you got to give props to Brentford. It was a good win. They controlled the matchup. They did what they needed to do to pull this one out. The win actually has them up in 13th place, while West Ham currently have the second worst record in the Premier League, and they're sitting down in 19th place. Wrapping up in England and heading over into Germany, Deutschland, one of the biggest matchups of the year was in store for us on Saturday. Their Klassiker. A great matchup between arguably the two best German teams of the 21st century, home and abroad. Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. Both teams have not lost this season coming into the game. Bayern are a perfect 6 wins from 6 games, while Dortmund has 4 wins and 2 draws in their start. The game was played in the Allianz Arena in Munich, Bavaria. Joshua Kimmich got us started early playing in the midfield for Bayern Munich. He had the first decent chance. The Bayern chances just kept piling on. Michael Olise, Luis Diaz, they both countered well around the 12th minute, but the Dortmund keeper was doing well to keep them in the game. And then if you had to guess who was going to score first in this matchup, I feel like a safe bet would have been Harry Kane, and that is exactly right. That's the correct decision. On a 22nd minute corner, Harry Kane does well to separate himself from his defender. And if you give a world-class striker like this chance, there's not going to be a world where he doesn't score. 1-0. Bayern then continued to attack in the next few minutes. Dortmund were pinned back, but the Bayern chances after this were subpar. I will say, though, Luis Diaz and Michael Olise are a fun winger pair to watch, and it's crazy that Bayern's entire front four came from Big Six Premier League sides, as the Chelsea man Nicholas Jackson was playing up top. The game slowed down, went into halftime. It was kind of slow in the early start of the second half. Dortmund still couldn't get a sniff of goal for a while. Bayern did get their second in the 78th minute, though it's got to be one of the weirder goals I've seen in a while. And it started normal enough. It was a ball down the left wing towards Luis Diaz. He kind of held up play. He allowed guys to catch up. Bayern players were starting to crash into the box, and he sent in a cross looking for a Bayern player. It got past the goalkeeper, and it was stopped by Joe Bellingham, the younger brother of the Madrid midfielder Jude Bellingham, and it was right in front of the Dortmund goal. I mean, like a yard from the line. But the way he stopped it, he almost stepped on the ball. He couldn't collect his feet to get the ball out, and Michael Olise comes sliding in and kind of blocked it, tackled him in an attempted during the attempted clearance, and it's very rare that you see a slide tackle goal. And you can't really blame Bellingham. I mean, it was just an unfortunate situation for Dortmund. The ESPN commentators made a point to say, oh, he should have done something. He should have got it out. And I watched it again on replay, and I don't know how. It was hit with such pace. Bellingham did manage to... The fact that he managed to stop it at all was impressive. And with Bayern players around, I think it was inevitable that it was going to go in the goal. Dortmund then maybe kind of led us on to believe we might have a game 5 minutes later. The sub, Julian Brandt, in his first touch of the ball, he just came in. He got his foot on a speedy cross from the right wing back, Julian Rieson, and he was unmarked in the box. It was a wonderful first-time finish. Dortmund attempted to push for their equalizer, but it was really all for naught as Bayern managed to control the game after the goal, and they had more chances towards the end of the game, and the game finished 2-1 to the Bavarian Giants. Harry Kane. Harry fucking Kane. Harry Kane is so freaking good. Yeah, there's a whole Bayern versus Dortmund game to talk about, but I want to talk about Harry Kane. First off, his goal scoring rate this season is unreal. He's got 12 goals in 7 games in the Bundesliga. And if you go all competitions, he's got 20 goals in 12 games. Those are insane numbers. And he played this game in the central attacking midfield position. He played like a 10-2. He dropped deep to accept the ball, passed well, progressed it well, and he still managed to get on the score sheet. If you look at his heat map, it's all over the place. And he's on amazing form to start this season. This is Ballon d'Or-esque numbers. This is record-breaking shit. I've said it before. If England make a run in 2026, the World Cup, if Kane keeps this up, stays healthy, who knows? Trophies and awards are going to follow. The two accompanying Bayern wingers, Michael Olise and Luis Diaz, also had a great game. They were constantly on the break. They terrorized Dortmund's wingbacks. And this game being 2-1 really felt like a misrepresentation. I thought Bayern were the better side by more than just a 1-goal difference. And it's been an incredible start to the season for Vincent Kompany's men. This is 7 wins from 7 games in the Bundesliga. And as of recording this podcast, they haven't lost to any other competition either. Not even a draw. The 12 games they've played in all competitions they've won. They've got a 23 goal differential in the league. They're 5 points ahead of the closest competition, which I believe is RB Leipzig. And the season is probably over already. I can't imagine anyone putting up too much of a fight after this start to the season. I mean, you can't beat Dortmund up too much. Despite the loss, they're still in 4th. They're still sitting in Champions League positions. And I believe they have the talent and the strength enough to get the job done against other German competition. And hopefully for them, they can make a decent run in the Champions League. The other game from Germany during the weekend I wanted to hit on was Bayer Leverkusen traveling to Mainz. Really interested this season I've been to see how Bayer Leverkusen adapts, as they're effectively a different team from the 2023-2024 side that went undefeated. And this game I had circled on my calendar. It turned out to be a shootout. I mean, nearly every word in this recap is going to be dedicated to goals. Alejandro Grimaldo, the lone survivor of the transfer purges in this Bayer Leverkusen team, opened up the scoring with a penalty in the 11th minute. It was a tight foul on the edge of the box. It was reviewed by VAR, and the penalty was finally put in the bottom right corner. Leverkusen doubled their lead in the 24th minute after a few minutes of just positive play. Christian Cafane made up for squandering a chance 2 minutes before with some nice tiki-taka passes in the box when he doubled Leverkusen's lead. Mainz, though, they got their first one, a long throw-in, which seemed to be all the rage lately. The aftermath of the long throw-in landed at the feet of Lee Jae-sung in the 34th minute. Couldn't have scored it any easier. And Grimaldo got his second before halftime to make it 3-1. Mainz wouldn't behave, though. They wouldn't sit back. They scored a penalty in the 71st minute, made it 3-2. Martin Terrier, though, restored Leverkusen's 2-goal lead with, honestly, some poor Mainz defending in the 87th minute. But, again, Mainz didn't stop. They kept fighting. 2 minutes later, Armindo Sieb scored for Mainz, but it wasn't enough. The game finished 4-3 in a 7-goal shootout to Bayer Leverkusen. And breathe. Good Lord. That had to be one of the most exciting games from this weekend. I mean, yeah, combined 7 goals from the two teams. Final score, Bayer Leverkusen 4, Mainz 3. It's one of those weird games where you find yourself giving the losing team praise for managing to stay in it and keep fighting and chipping away at the lead. And you kind of sort of criticize Leverkusen for nearly squandering multiple leads as Mainz cut their 2-goal lead in half twice. Ultimately, though, they pulled through. Grimaldo was decent for them. Again, he's the lone survivor, the only one from the great teams that's still there. They're sitting 5th in the league. Goal differentials keeping them out of the Champions League spots behind Dortmund currently. Mainz, they aren't doing so great. They're sitting 16th. That's in the relegation zone. I believe it's actually a relegation playoff in Germany. And, they were home. So they're going to want to improve their home form going forward, but at least they could take the positives from all this goal scoring. Other scores in Germany worth noting, Union Berlin defeated Mönchengladbach. Mönchengladbach the kind of always frisky team in Germany with a pretty atrocious start to the season. I believe they're in last place. RB Leipzig keeps up their good start to the season. 2-1 win over Hamburg. I believe they're the closest to Bayern in the standings. And then Stuttgart, which has been one of the more positive teams in Germany the last few years, defeated Wolfsburg 3-0. And then their wonderful player who's been linked to many big clubs, Angelo Stiller, got on the score sheet in the 80th minute. We're going to move over to Spain now, though. Spain for the weekend. The first match of notice was an all-Catalonian affair, as Barcelona, who still aren't playing in the Camp Nou, hosted Girona. Girona was a Champions League participant last season, but you would not be able to tell so far. They've had a really shaky start to their season. Barcelona have been solid so far in La Liga, though they are always in a battle with their eternal rivals, Real Madrid, who they are fighting top spots for. The man on loan from Manchester United, Marcus Rashford, leads the line for Barcelona on the weekend. Then they had some of the usual suspects, Pedri, Karbasi, Koundé, and De Jong, sprinkle in some rotation. And then, of course, the great Lamine Yamal was back on the wing, starting for the first time in a while. And there's actually some recognizable names in this Girona lineup as well. Daley Blind, Axel Witsel, both having World Cup and Champions League experience, though I would say they are on the wrong side of 30. The first 15 seconds, of course, there was protests by the players. They were protesting a game in La Liga in December being played in Miami, which La Liga is not airing the protest. I mean, the game shouldn't be going on. I'm not going to get into that. I'll get into that probably closer to the game in December. But the game did start eventually. Lamal opened it up with some wonderful dribbling the 5th minute, got past his defender. It didn't result in anything, but, you know, in such a rigid game, seeing such fluidity and wonderful dribbling is just always really nice. He would get an assist a few minutes later, though he didn't do too much work on it. Pedri received the ball from Lamal, kind of danced across the top of the box. He wasn't overtly challenged by any Girona players, and he was able to expertly slide the ball into the right corner. Almost felt like he passed it. The Girona keeper had no chance. You know, I may have said a few seconds ago that Axel Witsel was on the wrong side of 30 for Girona, but what he did less than 7 minutes after Pedri's goal was truly spectacular to get Girona back in the game. A corner kick for Girona was attempted to be cleared. Girona gets it. They put it back in the box, and Witsel hit a bicycle kick. Wojciech Szczesny had no chance of saving that in the Barcelona goal. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, it's not like Cristiano Ronaldo against Juventus, but it bounced early, but it was good. It was a bicycle kick. How often do you see a bicycle kick? It was awesome. It was awesome. Then Girona kept going. They had Barcelona on the back foot. Szczesny had to make another save. This Barcelona high line, they were attacking really well. I mean, this first half was exciting. Marcus Rashford hit the post on what would have been an amazing free kick in the 30th minute. And then before halftime again, Barcelona's high line nearly cost them. But it went in 1-1. And you would have expected the second half to be Barcelona pushing for that second goal at home, but that just wasn't the case. The game was significantly more even than Barcelona would have liked to be. I think that was shown. The frustration was shown. Their head coach Hansi Flick received a red card, which means he's not going to be he's not going to be coaching next week against Real Madrid. But then, in the dying moments of the game, with less than 100 seconds before the referee could technically blow his whistle, Frankie de Jong made a nice run down the right side where there was a lot of Barcelona players in the box, and his cross met the foot of the right back, Ronald Araujo. As Girona players fell to the ground in defeat, the ball went in the back of the net, and somehow Barcelona pulled this one out. For Barcelona, after this game, I would just fall back to the expression that a win is a win. A win is a win is a win. You got your 3 points. The game is over. Champions League is coming in the midweek, and next week you got El Klassiker. Just move forward. Game's over. They won. And, I mean, by the standards of Barcelona, this was an incredibly poor performance. Yeah, I'll acknowledge the injuries. There were a lot of guys who weren't even able to be on the bench today. Ferran Torres, Dani Olmo, Gabi, Robert Lewandowski. But this is still Barcelona. There's still a lot of talent in this Barcelona side, and it wasn't great. And now you're not going to have your coach for El Clasico. It was a stupid red card in frustration for Flick. Lamal looked decent in his return to start. I mean, nothing crazy. His assist wasn't really much of an assist. Rashford continues to put in solid performances away from Manchester. And Girona got to be kicking themselves to not have gotten any type of points today. Draw or win, they exposed that Barcelona high line several times, and they weren't able to get one goal out of any of those balls over the top. And they're typically a very defensive team, and they didn't resort to defensive tactics. They pushed for that second goal. They tried to get that win at Barcelona, and unfortunately for them, it just didn't work out the way they wanted it to. At the very least, they could build some momentum from this one. They are sitting at the bottom of the table. They have the least amount of points. They have the worst goal differential. Their scoring record's been atrocious. They didn't look like the 20th team in Spain, but also Barcelona didn't look like the second best team in Spain, where they're currently sitting at the end of the weekend 2 points behind Madrid in what's shaping up to be a huge El Clasico next week. Next game of attention on Saturday in Spain was Atletico Madrid hosting Osasuna. Atletico has had a bit of a topsy-turvy start to the season. They started off really poor, and they've just been one of those teams where one game they can beat anyone, which was evidenced by their 5-2 victory over Madrid before the international break, while some games you were just left scratching your head. Unfortunately for any American soccer fans, there was no sign of midfielder Johnny Cardoso for Atletico Madrid. He's still recovering from injury. I was hoping to see him on the bench after the international break, but that was just not the case. Still a pretty strong lineup for Atletico with most of the typical guys you'd expect: Griezmann, Alvarez, Koke, Oblak. And Atletico thought they'd open the game in the 9th minute. Alex Bania made a nice run on a pass from Julian Alvarez, and then VAR wanted to take a look at it. And I'm not really sure what they were looking at first, but he wasn't offsides. He wasn't even close to offsides. But then you realize Antoine Griezmann, he set a pick on the Osasuna defender from an offside position, and that removed the goal off the board. I haven't seen many like that, but I guess it is a foul. It was the right call. As Osasuna around the 20-30 minute mark started to push forward, but it was all Atletico's game. They were home, they were better, they were the better side in the second half, and it paid off in the 70th minute. The coach's son, not a Nepo baby though, he's pretty good. Giuliano Simeone gets past his defender, he finds Thiago Almada in the box, and Almada actually secures his first ever Atletico Madrid goal, and that was all that was needed to win the game for Atletico Madrid. For what's been an incredibly weird start to the season for Atletico, this game was probably a breath of fresh air. Yeah, it took them 70 minutes to finally get their breakthrough goal, but they were in control. And you spent watching the second half knowing that goal was coming. And their league form is turning around. They have 3 wins and 1 draw in their last 4 games. Again, this is a capable team. They showed it when they beat the brakes off of Real Madrid 5-2 a few weeks ago. They're good. They're going to turn things around. That just first couple games really were freaky and weird. And this win actually sees Atletico sitting 4th in the Champions League spots. They would qualify if the season ended today. Osasuna are 13th, still strong defensively. They just weren't able to get into it, and it was just one of those days for the club. In an attempt to keep their lead on top of La Liga and stay in front of their rivals Barcelona, Real Madrid traveled to Getafe in a late Sunday night matchup. With an El Clasico looming, any opportunity to keep the gap in their direction, Real Madrid were going to need to get a result here. Getafe were just kind of seeing if they could play the role of the spoiler. Real Madrid came into this matchup with a lineup that reflected some light rotation: Alvaro Carreras at left back, Franco Mastantuono in the right wing, Vinny Jr. was on the bench. Still many of the key players in the team. You had Mbappe up front, Jude Bellingham starting in the 10 spot, central attacking midfielder, kind of more akin to how he was playing for Carlo Ancelotti last year versus Xabi Alonso this year. Again, another game with the 15-second protest. This time, though, surprisingly, it was aired. But as we get the game on, Madrid had the first chance of the game against their crosstown rivals. Mbappe got a one-on-one 8 minutes in, but it resulted in a good save from Getafe goalkeeper David Soria. Several minutes passed before really anything of note. 1 or 2 light penalty shouts, a shot from outside the box, and then Mbappe in the 30th minute. Alex Sanchez for Getafe had a shot where Courtois was flat-footed, but he ultimately missed the goal. And guys were slipping all over this field. Several instances of guys slipping, tripping, and whatnot. Grass looked high and the grass looked wet. Alaba and Valverde saw more chances, but it went in the halftime period 0-0. And it was a good first half for the Getafe goalkeeper David Soria. Vinny Jr. finally came into the game in the 54th minute. It was a slow start to the second half. I mean, it's got me writing stuff down, like acknowledging their goalkeeper for the second time. But Getafe, they got a little foul happy, and you wondered if that came back to bite them. The corners and the free kicks for Madrid were just not producing anything. They had first decent chance for open play when Bellingham went on a nice run to find Mbappe, whose finish was just poor, fell outside the goal. They got a dangerous free kick, but Militao, one of Madrid's own players, it deflected off of, pushed it outside of the goal. But the fouls did come back to bite Getafe. Alain Niom, he comes on right off the bench, fresh, and he hit Vinny with a 2-piece. Took him out in the legs, and nice elbow to the face. Referee saw all he needed to see in front of both benches, and it was a red card, it did prove to be costly. Militao found Arda Güler, who found Mbappe. 2 quick passes up the middle, and with relative ease, he put the ball in the back of the net. It did hit the post, but there wasn't a world he wasn't going to score. He almost doubled it, but more poor finishing from Mbappe. Getafe then earned their second red of the night as Alex Sanchez. He slightly fouled Vinny, but it was late, and he was already on a yellow, so it was justified. Getafe were down to 9 men. Somehow Real Madrid were not able to find it. They weren't able to find another one. It was 11:09, and they actually, in the dying moments, required a save from their keeper, Courtois, who I haven't had to mention all game. But yeah, that was the final score, 1-0. Yeah, that one finished as a 1-0 victory for Real Madrid over Getafe, and I said the same thing about the Barcelona game. Just a win's a win. A win is a win. A win. You take the 3 points and you leave. I don't believe Madrid played particularly poorly. Their finishing was poor, but Getafe players were hell bent on inflicting as much damage against Real Madrid players as possible. The fact that it only resulted in 4 yellows, a red, and 2 total send-offs is surprising. I think there's an argument that it could have produced more. I know people love the narrative that the refs are biased to Real Madrid, but Getafe, they tried to beat the shit out of them. Mbappe coming off some injury suspicions. He played well. He was definitely the spark in the attack, and in games where his finishing would have been better, he easily could have got a hat trick, but he was rewarded with an 80th minute goal. Courtois was not called on much, but when he did, he did. He's always class. And again, yeah, Madrid just did what they needed to do. It's on to the future. They got the Champions League in midweek. They're playing Juventus, and then they've got the big El Clasico match next Sunday. I've now mentioned for the 20th time. I really can't give any praise to Getafe. I'm not. Their goal was to slow down Madrid and to rough them up. And yeah, that's fine. It's all well and good. Maybe it's old school, but they didn't try to win the game whatsoever. They made no attempt to do that. The only player I'll really give any praise to was their goalkeeper, David Soria. He really kept them in the game and made it. He was the only reason it wasn't more than 1-0. And yeah, the win was huge. Real Madrid stay top of the league. They're 2 points ahead of Barcelona. Getafe they're middle of the pack. They're 12th. I just wonder if they're this rough against other teams in La Liga. We head over to Italy, where I had 2 games circled on my calendar that caught my attention. The first was a big name matchup with AS Roma hosting Inter. I was really looking forward to this one. Both these teams were sitting towards the top of the table, have had good starts to the season, and both their lineups were pretty strong, especially considering they both have midweek European games to follow this one up. Roma were playing a strong 11, I would know, considering they're usually my go-to football manager team. Inter were in their trusty 3-5-2, different manager, same formation. The game started out perfectly for the Nerazzurri. Roma were up the field, and then after some successful defending, possession shifted to Inter. Roma were playing an incredibly high line, and a ball through to Gioan Boni. Saw him get a one-on-one with the Roma keeper, Mike Savlar, and he calmly finished it to the near post. The offsides trap didn't work for Roma. A few chances followed, but it was quite a slow first half after that. Inter were up 1-0. A Dybala header from a corner in the 12th minute was the only serious Roma chance. This one was kind of boring, not boring, but Roma just couldn't break through. It was Roma attacking. Their high line nearly costing again. This time it was Dumfries that broke through in the start of the second half. His shot was saved. Dybala, the World Cup winner, he had his chance. But Jan Sommer played well. Jan Sommer, always fantastic. Kept Roma's goal count at 0. Dybala had another chance, a free kick in the 55th minute. Again, another save by Sommer. They pushed the Inter defense, which they're known for. They were stubborn. Coupled with some fine saves, the score finished 1-0 to Inter. Somehow Roma did not score in that game. Somehow Paulo Dybala did not score in that game. Inter Milan, they held on strong for all 3 points. It was a big matchup. You win big matchups, you win titles. And there's a reason Inter's been winning titles in Italy of recent. And the Roma highline, I get that that's some coach's philosophy, but it just seems so counterproductive at several points during the game. All the big chances that Roma gave up were not result of successful play from Inter, but just kind of a simple ball over the top, where Roma players were just not in sync regarding their offside trap. It gave up the first goal, and it nearly gave up more. And Roma would be kicking themselves. They had so many chances. And yes, Inter has a fantastic defense. Bastoni is one of the best center backs in Europe. Jan Sommer has consistently been an underrated goalkeeper. I can't wrap my head around how Roma couldn't find anything. And they're going to rue it. They're going to regret it. It's going to sit. It's going to haunt them. And that's how it finished. I mean, they're even on points. Inter caught up to Roma. But Inter's got a better goal differential. They're sitting second. Roma's sitting fourth. I mean, I know Serie A is known for their defense, but I'm just shocked that only one goal was scored. The game I really wanted to focus on from Italy. And Italy has so many teams that are just so well known. It's like, how do you pick? And I know I give most of my love, most of my attention to the Premier League. So when I look at Italy, I'm like, all right, there's Napoli, and there's AC Milan, there's Fiorentina. Atalanta has really just turned into one of the better run organizations over there. But I wanted to focus on one of the more interesting stories coming out of Italian football this season, the last few years, and that was Como, near the lovely Lake Como. Maybe I'll go one day. They were taking on Juventus at home. And Como have had a recent influx of cash. They've had promotions, and here they are taking on one of the institutions of Serie A. And the game actually had two North Americans in the lineup for Juventus. The Texas man, Weston McKennie, was starting on the bench in this occasion, while I got to give a shout out to the fantastic Canadian striker, Jonathan David, who was leading the line up top. And yeah, David has been a thorn on the side for the United States men's national team over the last few years. But let's get to the game where Como wasted absolutely no time to take the lead in this one. An early corner routine, it was intentional, 4th minute, they saw a give and go. And then after the go, a wonderful cross from the youngster Nico Paz, and Mark Oliver Kempf, the center back, had a commanding finish. Great finish for a center back. Juventus keeper had no chance early on in the game, and Como have a 1-0 lead. Juventus tried to counter with a few attacking challenges, but the next best threat came from Como. They have a veteran up front. You may know him by the name of Alvaro Morata. His shot in the 29th minute on a counterattack forced a strong save from Michel De Gregorio, the Juve keeper. Moving on to the second half, I mean, it really was an entertaining first half. Our guy McKennie was subbed on for Juventus, but that's probably the last thing positively I'm going to speak on regarding Juventus. 79th minute against the run of play, Como counter 2-on-2, and after cutting onto his left foot, Nico Paz sent a curling shot to the bottom left corner, dropped my pencil, and he won the game 2-0. Como won the game 2-0, but he had a massive part to do with it. This Como story continues to get more interesting. The development of Nico Paz continues to get more interesting. I mean, the incredible Argentine youngster, 21 years old, on a summer transfer from Real Madrid, he had himself a day with a goal and assist. I almost wonder, they're pretty good at business if Real Madrid have any sort of buyback clause regarding Nico Paz. No, I didn't look it up. And yeah, I want to keep watching his progression this season. His cross in the first half was perfect. His second goal, cutting on his left foot, was Arjen Robben for Bayern-esque. And yeah, this is a player and a team I'm going to continue to watch this season. They play good football. They have the financial support. Can Como rub shoulders with the big boys in Italy? The win has them sitting 6th. And that's one spot against the Juventus team they confidently beat. They were the better team on the day. What I'm really eyeing up is in about 2 weeks, they have a November 1st match with Napoli. They haven't lost to a bigger team yet this season, but I believe Napoli will have been the strongest team they played so far. And I think that will be a good metric of seeing where this Como team is to start this season. Juventus are good, but they're not great like they used to be. They're kind of stuck. They've been stuck in this purgatory for the last maybe 5 years where, yeah, they're not bad, but they're not the Juventus team of the mid-2010s. Other results out of Italy coming out of this weekend. Torino with a shocking upset against Napoli, winning 1-0 at home. Napoli had a late equalizer ruled out due to VAR. Atalanta and Lazio played to a 0-0 draw, and Rafael Leao had a double for AC Milan as they defeated a struggling Fiorentina 2-1 at home. And yeah, that's all I really got from Italy. We're going to move over to France because there's two teams that have been the most exciting in French football, and that's what I want to pay attention to. And honestly, I think you can include the third most interesting team. And this first matchup was between the teams sitting second and third, Friday night soccer between PSG and Strasbourg. And I have to give my respects to Strasbourg. That's why I said 3 interesting teams instead of 2, because I looked they're only a point behind PSG in the standings. They're not really getting mentioned the way PSG, and I'll just spoil it now, Marseille are being talked about. And this Friday night game was one of those games where all I'm going to be talking about is goals. I mean, 6 minutes in, Bradley Barcola on the left-hand side with Desiree Doué plays a 1-2, and just like that, PSG are winning in the matchup. And how good PSG are at home, I thought it was over. But Strasbourg said no. Strasbourg responded in the 26th minute. Joaquin Penicelli got his head on a fantastic cross from Doué. There's a Doué on Strasbourg as well, Aguela Doué, and this game was tied up. Strasbourg actually went into halftime with the lead. It was a poor giveaway by PSG's Desiree Doué, deep in their own territory, and a 1-2 fine shot by Diego Moreira, and it gave Strasbourg a lead. They're going into halftime. And even wilder at the start of the second half, Strasbourg increased their lead. Panicelli on the double. It was a long ball that just wasn't dealt with. He kind of was offsides, but he wasn't because the ball was kicked by a PSG player, so that's the rules. Set up Panicelli in the middle. Puts it away. It's 3-1. I'm thinking, can Strasbourg do this? But PSG would fight back. Doué earned a penalty on a long ball where Gonçalo Ramos calmly put it in the bottom left corner, made it 3-2. And then in the 79th minute, PSG get their comeback. The youngster, Seni Malulu, collects his first save shot, heads it, puts it in the back of the net, tied the game up with the final score of 3-3, and that's how it finished. PSG have fallen into the soccer philosophical quantum mechanic equation that I call Schrodinger's draw. It is somehow both incredibly impressive that they've managed to pull themselves out of a 3-1 lead to tie it up, and it's incredibly disappointing that they were losing to Strasbourg at home 3-1 to require a comeback. Essentially, the game was both good and bad. How can the game be both good and bad? Well, that's kind of due to Strasbourg. You gotta give the credit to them, but also they're on the opposite side of that Schrodinger's draw. It was incredible that they took the lead 3-1 at PSG, and it was poor that they gave it up. They capitalized when Paris made mistakes, and their striker, Joaquin Panicelli, had a fantastic display. The dude was in the second division in Spain last year, and he was a problem for these PSG defenders to deal with. Strasbourg are sitting in a Champions League place. They're only 1 point behind PSG. PSG, despite all their talent, for how good they looked in the Champions League, the best team in the world, have now only won one game in their last 4 league appearances. The fans booed them. Harsh, but kind of fair. These are not the performances that will retain titles. Especially, again, Strasbourg playing well, Marseille playing well. PSG need to turn it around if they want to just ease into a Liga victory where they can maybe rest towards the end of the season for the Champions League. Next up, we do have the second French game moved on to Saturday. PSG's eternal rival in the French league, Marseille. Marseille starting off the season well. The Zerbi's men, they know if they win versus Le Havre, they will win. They will end the weekend at the top of the league. Yeah, this one was also goals, just like the PSG game. However, this one wasn't as close. Le Havre got the first goal. They got it started going. Yassine Ketcha took the ball on his right foot, shot it through several people in the 24th minute to take a 1-0 lead. Their good time, though, for Le Havre. It would end. It was kind of a trip handball combination on the end of the box on a Marseille player, on Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I thought, yellow card, definite, stopping of a goal-scoring opportunity, but it was harsh. Red card. I mean, they got the penalty, so give them a yellow card. I didn't agree with the call. And Mason Greenwood stepped up, scored a penalty, tied it up 1-1. The avalanche against Le Havre actually came in the second half, and it was all Mason Greenwood. Greenwood with his left foot benefited from a deflection, made it 2-1. The American Tim Weah was then subbed on for Marseille. Greenwood got his hat trick 5 minutes later after his second goal, and then he got his fourth 4 minutes later. An impressive and quick second half hat trick. Fourth goal of the night. Decent assist from the World Cup winner, Benjamin Pavard. Marseille made it 5-1 in the 88th minute. Nice goal from Robinho Vaz. In stoppage time, they exchanged goals. Le Havre made it 5-2, and then Marseille replied a minute later to make it 6-2 final score. This Marseille team is legit. That was a demolition derby. And obviously, it needs to be mentioned that the red card against Le Havre was a harsh decision from the referee and VAR. But you can only work with what you got, and Marseille made the most of that opportunity. The goals poured in. 6, and they were easy. And now with the win, Marseille is sitting at the top of the French league. They have one win over PSG, who they've already defeated so far this season. De Zerbi is a fantastic manager. I still, to this day, can't believe Brighton let him go. They have the talent. Højbjerg, Aubameyang, Greenwood, they could be a thorn in PSG's side all season. And I just want to see if they can keep it up. They do have Champions League fixtures to deal with. So they are going to have a bloated schedule like PSG. They don't have the depth of PSG. But for the sake of just entertainment, I think I can speak for everyone when you say you want to see if Marseille can keep it up. And they're top of the league. Le Havre, their opponents on the other side, they are sitting in a relegation spot all the way down in 16th. I believe it would be a relegation playoff spot in this 18-team league. I just want to give a shout out to Messi. Lionel Messi, hat trick over in MLS. I don't talk about MLS much. not having a local team and just the inconsistencies of the schedule, and now a lot of the games being on Apple TV, it's hard for me to keep up with MLS. But the great Messi getting a hat trick for Inter Miami against Nashville. And the last thing I want to do on the podcast today are the Premier League podium players of the weekend. Honorable mention in the Premier League podium players goes to Kyle Walker in the win for Burnley. He produced 1 assist and had a very large impact on the other goal for Burnley in their victory. The third place, sitting lowest on the podium, but still worth a note, Jean-Philippe Mateta for Crystal Palace. 3 goals, a hat trick. Now I know, how could a hat trick not be closer? But they didn't win the game. And Mateta had more chances to put the ball in the back of the net. And the other 2 guys were instrumental in winning their games. Second place, podium finisher, Erling Haaland, 2 goals. Striker's finish, did as good as you'd expect him to do. Just having an incredible start to the season. And our number 1 podium player, the Brighton man, the 34-year-old eternal wonder, Danny Welbeck. 2 goals to give Brighton a 2-1 victory over Newcastle, showing age over beauty, as he did wonderful with both goals being just quintessential striker finishes. What a weekend for Danny Welbeck and Brighton. Well, if you've made it this far, 70 minutes into the podcast, I actually meant for that podium position player thing to last a little longer, but thank you. Appreciate it. That was Talk Soccer to me. Yeah. A American soccer podcast for the American soccer fan, recapping everything that's going on, trying to keep the nostalgia and the rage bait away. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you. We should have an episode coming out with all the Champions League and Premier League Match Day 9 and El Clasico, hopefully out by Tuesday or Wednesday. Quick turnaround, as this one, unfortunately, due to some technical issues, was a little later. But yeah, like, subscribe, follow, comment, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere else you feel so inclined to listen to a podcast. Thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. Goodbye.